Hello everybody, welcome back to another Woodworking Wisdom. Today we're in the Woodturning workshop and we're going to look at project kits, or more specifically we are looking at a light pull and a keyring. You've probably seen them on the holding image, so I'll just give you a closer look. So we've got a little keyring here, and we've just labelled with the shed with a bit of pyro. And then a little light pull that's that kind of classic bell shape. Really nice little bit of burr oak, that one. Now, these projects are really good for beginners. They're really good because, you know, you're kind of set to what sizes you've got to turn things. They're good practice and they're nice and small. And the way that we mount them on the lathe is really safe. So these are a really good way to get going in your turning. So let's come back onto camera one here. Thank you. So a really good way to get going in turning. And like I say, mounted on that pen mandrel is a really, really safe way of work holding and a great way to kind of build confidence to get you into like your spindle work. You can practice your beads and things like that. We're going to do some pretty simple shapes today. But like I say, as long as we get the ends the right size, what you do in between that is kind of up to you. There's lots of kind of classic shapes out there that you could follow, lots that you could look up online and try and reproduce. But yeah, we're going through a bit of project kit turning. Okay, we're going to whiz through the prep today. So I'm going through it, but I'm not going to go through quite as in-depth as normal. I'm going to grab my goggles here, just left them on the bench over the side. As always, if you have any questions as we go, pop them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer. We've got Steph on cameras and questions today, so thanks very much, Steph. So in the on the chuck here, so we've got the SK114. I've got my 7mm drill bit all set up in the chuck, in the Jacob's chuck or drill chuck, this end, and a little scrap of I think this is laburnum because it's got that white heartwood there and this really strong grain running through it. Okay, so this will be quite pretty once it's kind of polished up. And actually, just before we get into the turning, Steph, could we have a little look at where these kind of little scrappy bits are coming from? So this is our kind of waste bin, where we cut things on the bandsaw, we're cutting bowl blanks or perhaps spindles. Quite often there's little bits in there. And then I spotted that bit of burr oak just sticking out of the top, a little bit of brown oak. And I thought I can get something out of that. So I've turned the light pull that we were looking at a minute ago is turned out of that burr oak. And then that's what the keyring came out of. That is a bit of spalted sycamore, I think. And again, it's got splits in there. It's got the heart there, but there's still a couple of little usable bits of wood on that, and quite pretty. That kind of spalting in it. So, like I say, a fantastic way of using up all your bits and bobs. Okay, so back onto our cameras here. So first thing we need to do is drill our hole. These pen jaws have these little cutouts. So just in the jaw here, you can see these little cutouts in the jaw. So you get 8 points of contact all the way around. You want to put those corners actually in those little voids in between the jaw, and that keeps everything really nice and central. I'm just going to lose that drill bit for a moment. That's the long drill bit, and I'm going to give myself a little guide of where we need to be. So I'm going to cut a little kind of lead in, or kind of a centering hole, if you will, for our drill bit to nestle into. So we don't really need to be going very fast for this. Around about 500 or 600. And I'm just going to push that center of the skew just on center on our little bit of laburnum. Just ended up with a little nub in there, so I'm just using the tip of that skew just to get rid of that. Because if you get that little nub in the center, quite often it can throw the drill bit off course, and then you start getting a bit of a wobbly drill bit. This is the long series drill bit, one of the pen drill bits. Okay, and it has that kind of exaggerated flute, so it pulls the material out a bit quicker. Okay, so we got a question.
So, Ward Wilson's put Mr. and Mrs. today.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
And John Young has asked, the extractor stand, is it the heavy duty one?
It is, yeah. We always get questions on this, and I'm going to lift it up so you can see it on camera. This is the heavy duty extractor stand. It's a bit messy because we get all sorts of finishes and stuff on it, but yeah, this is a real kind of heavy. It's got that heavy base. It'll take, because some of these hoses are quite heavy sometimes, and they'll drag down on the back of the extractor stands. But yeah, really good. And then this is a bit of the flexi hose, the kind of stay put hose they call it. Okay.
And not so much a question, but Terry Bone said that they find using just two jaws opposite, i.e. 1 and 3,
yeah,
better location when blank is not square or even.
Yeah, great tip. So if you've got something that's not, you know, say it was a 20 mil blank, and on one side it was, you know, 23 mil or something, quite often you can just use two of those jaws, and that will center things better. This one's pretty square. I cut it on the bandsaw, and what I do is put the, you know, the edge that we want between the bandsaw and the fence. Bring the fence up too, so it's kind of pinched against the blade just a little bit. Turn the blank over, and that should cut it square. But yeah, great tip. Thank you. So speed on the lathe is just a little bit too high. I'm just dropping that just below 600. And then we can start to wind our tailstock in. If we have a look just up above here, Jason the other day, he was doing his lighthouse pepper mill, and he's very kindly done a little line there where the auto eject is on the drill chuck. So I'm going from that point. I'm just going to hold the drill bit as we go, and the chuck itself. Be careful, obviously, if this isn't properly bedded in, this could turn. So just be extra careful on that first little bit. Oh, we got a bit of a bounce there, so just steadying that, and then we can wind in and drill through. So there's not, you know, loads of travel on the quill on the tailstock. So I'm just winding that back, keeping that drill bit engaged. We can push it up through. Jason, I saw earlier, he just kept pushing, and it drilled right the way through. Well, that's that. Really quick and easy for a little blank that size. And what I tend to do is have a peek up through the headstock. We know this is hollow right the way through for our knockout bar, and I can actually see through the blank, and I can see the tip of the drill bit there. So we're good. We've gone right the way through. Just need to find my chuck key, and then our blank can come out, and now that is ready for gluing. Okay, to glue these up, just want a little bit of this epoxy resin. So I like this Z-Epoxy, really good stuff. 30-minute cure time, so we won't actually be using that blank, but luckily we've got ones that we've already prepared. So we've got our blanks prepared here. Okay, That's going to end up being a keyring, and that one is our light pull. Once this glue has completely gone off, there's one last job we've got to do, and that's to trim it. You can see I've already trimmed this one. So we've cut the blank back to the brass tube inside, and that's really important that the bushings on the mandrel in a moment are going to seat nice and square to that blank. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly whiz this other one. Excuse me for a moment, turn my back to you. Just need to quickly trim this off. And again, there's a couple of ways you could do that. I'm using the barrel trimmer. So using the barrel trimmer on the drill, okay. But you could use the sanding disc or something like that. That's going to be nice and quick. I like to use the sanding disc if I'm doing lots of pens in one hit. But otherwise, that barrel trimmer is a really good, quick way of doing it. And you can see that just takes seconds to trim that back. And that's what we're looking for, the little glint on the end of that bit of brass, just taking off that oxidized layer. And yeah, everything's trimmed nice and flush. Okay, so we've got another question.
Yeah, so we've got a question here from Paul Norman. He's saying, hi Ben, is there anything different with the new professional lathe, or is it just new branding?
It's new branding. So we've gone from our trade and craft to workshop and professional. Much the same lathe. I think there are certain machines where it's a brand new machine, so we're looking at planer thicknesses and things like that. With these lathes, they're the same model. They're just updating, a bit of a refresh. But actually, mechanically, there may be some very slight differences, but generally, it's a rebrand rather than a kind of reinvention of the machine, if you like. Okay. Okay,
and we've had a question here from Cliff. So from Jason's Lighthouse session, Ben said that he would put up the extended bar Forstner set reference after the video. He couldn't find it on the YouTube version. Was it put somewhere else?
I thought I had. We found it, and if you look right at the end of that chat on that live, there is the part number should be right at the bottom, because we did find it. It was a very luxurious bit of kit. So we are looking at that now. But yeah, it's a fish, and I think it's a Forstner set. It has extension bars. It has the 2 Morse taper on there, which is really helpful. But we did find it. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but if you scroll back through that video and just whip right to the end, it will be one of the last things that were put on there, because another customer was asking for it. They thought they had found it, and yeah, we just confirmed that that was the right one. But off the top of my head, I'm not sure what that number was.
Just having a look, see if I can find it.
Steph's going to have a little scroll through our website. I think it was the fish Forstner set, Steph. So I'm just stripping the lathe down. So I've taken the chuck off, taken the drill chuck out of our tailstock here, and we can pop in the mandrel. So we've got our Evolution compression mandrel here. Really nice little bit of kit, this one. Tailstock, chuck it up in that end. Headstock, kind of chuck it in there. And I'll give it a little bit of a slam, give it a pull, make sure it's not going to come back out. Good.
Ben, can I just ask quickly,
yeah.
Sorry, that Forstner set, was it a 17-piece set?
I'm not sure. It was about 350 odd quid.
338.
Yeah. I think that's the one.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. No problem. Okay, so my pen mandrel is just fouling on something in there. Let me just see if we can swap that out. Excuse me, folks. That's better. Okay. So something in there was stopping that Morse taper from engaging. So I've just swapped the mandrel out. And we are going to mount our project blank. So I'm going to go with the keyring first. And these are just the bushings supplied with the mandrel. Don't need to buy any extra bushings for these kits. I might just put an extra one in the middle, give me a little bit more spacing so we can see what we're doing. And remember, these tapered bushings are the same diameter as our little kind of round ones there. So I've not put a kind of packer bushing here. I'm just going to go with what's on that taper there. Okay, so mandrel's fixed. Need to add a bit of compression onto that. So make sure our little lever here is nicely done up. That's going to stop the tailstock from moving as we tighten that up. And I like to rock the project back and forth and just make sure that the spindle's moving with it. Okay, good. Little tool rest, little 6-inch tool rest. We can bring that in nice and close. And you can see our keyring, what will be our keyring, has got a slightly bigger blank. So I'm just going to rotate that on the lathe, come in nice and close, just make sure we're not fouling it. And I'll work on this one a little bit before we get to there, so we're not got that overhang with the tool. Just eyeballing it, just dropping it slightly below center there, and we should be good to go. Bring my little extraction in nice and close, and I'm just going to be using the kind of standard wood turning tools. These are the little workshop set, I think they're called. Okay. We can crank our speed up now. So I'm going to take it around about 2000 RPM. Remember, we've got that really safe, nice work holding method on the mandrel, so we can afford to take this nice and fast. So rough and gouge, just got my thumb on top here as a little chip deflector. So the chips aren't going in my face. It's sitting up on that wing. I know I'm not going to turn it into the project, keeping the rough and gouge or spindle rough and gouge nice and flat on the tool there. And what we're really doing, we're not concerned about finish or anything at this point. We're just knocking off those edges. So still got a little flat spot there. We've got really nice little markings in this piece of timber. So I want to keep this fairly chunky. I like a nice chunky keyring. Easy to find. And of course, if any of these timbers have a, if they float, you could use some sort of material that's going to, give you them. You take it out on the boat or the kayak or whatever. So I'm creeping in now with the tool rest. Okay, I've knocked off all those corners. Happy that shouldn't have any flat spot on it now. So that I'm good. That'll be easy to work now. I think let's knock off the corners of this one just for safety, really. So it's not going to come around if we're working on this one. So you can see both projects on the mandrel at once. Of course, you could do them separately. I just want to knock those corners off so they don't swing around, and that's good. So that's round two. We've made our cylinder. Okay, let's pop that back on the wall. So we need to kind of consider the shape. On this one, I quite like this little taper coming round into something a little bit chunkier. We've got some V-cuts to do on that as well. So I'm going to start tapering, taking material out of this end, and then we can round this over, potentially put a bead or something on it. So let's do that. So in fact, I'm going to go back to my rough and gouge for now. And just start to remove the bulk of this material out, keeping this end a bit chunkier. So I'm starting up high and dropping down into that kind of smaller circumference and not coming back up this way. You don't want to turn kind of and pull the grain of the timber out. And as the diameter decreases, I'm having to just lift the handle ever so slightly. If I was to come from here, keep the chisel at the same angle, it's going to be a very aggressive cut on this piece. So as we come around that curve, the handle has to just come up a bit to keep that cutting edge engaged. Cool. Just going to knock this corner off as well. And then we'll go to something like a bowl gouge. You could use your skew, depending on, you know, kind of how you like working. These chisels at the moment are razor sharp. Jason's done a little bit on Tormek video and sharpened them up really nicely. So they're looking really good. So just touching on, bringing the handle around till we get that dust, and then just sliding the bevel along. Whoops. That nice bevel rubbing cut. And I just want that nice kind of curve coming right the way down. And just gentle at the end there. We don't want all that kind of breakout that you may get. Trying to keep that curve nice and constant as it tapers down. And we've just got a very slight high spot here. So I'm just going to drop my tool rest down a bit. It feels like the handle's coming up a little bit too high. Good. And we can do the same this way. We've got a slight recess back there where we've trimmed that back of the barrel. And we've got this kind of, well, it's almost like a light pull as well, this one. I've accidentally done the same kind of shape. So bowl gouge going back. Let's have a look with our skew. So like I said, I want to keep this quite chunky. We are going to do something different with it in a minute and put some little flats on it. And I think just going to tidy up this end with a little bit of scraping with the skew. So putting the flat of the skew down onto the tool rest and just tickling that really gently with that kind of flat of that cutting edge. And where I'm looking is on this top edge. Rather than where the tool is in contact, I'm looking at that top profile to see what shape it's giving me. I'm just trying to blend that in really nice. And come across the flat here. And I think I quite like that little bit of definition on that edge, so I'm going to keep that there. So just going to bring my tool rest up again a little touch. So a V cut. So we're going in with our first line, so literally just pushing the end of that skew in. I want to do an equal spacing from that shoulder, so another one there, and then let's put another one right on this kind of edge. V-cuts. So from here, I'm going to just tip the chisel over and just chase down into that bottom of that little cut. Add a little slip there. Let's have a look. Okay, so I've got that little spiral. What I think I'm going to do is just use the bowl gouge and just trim that off. So back to the bowl gouge. Sorry, I looked up for a second then, and that was all it took. So we're just going to go for 2 little lines on this one now. Just trying to bring that curve back in. So being creative with our mistakes. And just trying to keep that a nice little curve. Cool. Okay, so on with our V-cuts. Remember, we're going to just tip the chisel from side to side. And I think that needs to just creep up again. Switching tools. Really gentle. Just putting a slight angle on the skew. And just chasing each one of these little cuts a little bit deeper. Let's have a peek. Still got that little tear there, so I think I'm going to just turn that into a shoulder. I'm going to use the heel of the skew there, just lining it up with that top end and almost putting like a little fillet there. Have a peek. Quite hard to tell sometimes when it's spinning around. That looks okay. So I'm happy with that shape. Just a little bit of a tickle around here. And now our light pull. So we're going to use a similar kind of technique. Let's go back to our bowl gouge where we swapped from scraping with the skew. We need to just drop that back down again. So we're just below center. And then we're going to start to remove this material here. So we're going for almost like a bell shape with this one. It's cutting completely differently to the sycamore. I want to keep that little end bit like a little flared out bell there. And just chasing those off nice and gentle at the end there. So really just swinging the handle of the bowl gouge out as we come around that curve. You're getting that nice kind of burnished cut where with the bevels rubbing. And you could leave some material on the end here and form like a little bead at the top of the light pull. I think I'm fairly happy with that. Again, back to our skew. A little bit of adjustment to do with the tool rest. I'm coming in nice and high. I've got space either end just to take that last little bit off with a bit of scraping. And yeah, we're going to do some more V-cuts. So in here, this is going to give us kind of like a grip for the light pull, some texture to you know, mess around with. Okay, so really nice and simple. Nothing too taxing there. We've got two little projects sat on the lathe. A little bit of sanding, I think, just to tidy up any kind of torn grain or anything that we may have, any kind of tooling marks. They're actually really clean, so it shouldn't take too long. Just going to go something a little bit higher, 240. Grab a bit of 400. And a bit of 600. So I'm not going right back to the kind of rougher grits, because actually we've come off the tooling very clean. Dust extraction's going on. Before that, let's have a question.
Well, not so much necessarily a question, but Fuller has said around here, it's not a mistake so long as I can fix it. So
that's right.
That's what we've done today.
Got it.
And he was saying as well that the pen mandrel that you're using seems to be, or looks to be, a much higher quality than what he's seen for sale in the US. Okay.
Yeah, these compression mandrels, I really rate these. You know, the way that they kind of grip the project. There's no threaded area. There's no nut on the end. So yeah, they're really nice. And if you're doing loads of this type of thing, you can just slide the tailstock back, remove your project, so that, you know, it speeds up the kind of quick change aspect of it as well. I'm just going to dump that across here.
What I would add to that, Ben, is that actually the woodturning store in America actually now sells our pen mandrels.
Yep.
So the one you're using is the compression one. So you can buy it in the US.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's really top quality bit of gear, that one. Okay, so a little bit of sanding. Just going to tweak the speed down a bit. And pop my extractor on. That's what I was doing. So this is going to get rid of all the finer dust. I've got a bit of loose stuff on there, so I'm just going to get rid of that. We don't want that wrapping around. Where we've got that little kind of fillet there, I don't want to round that off too much. I quite like the way it looks. So just being cautious as I approach that with the abrasive. This is going to be quite a tactile thing, so we don't want to you know, leave it rough. We want it nice and smooth and polished. So a bit of the, I think 240 there. I'm just going across the tops of where we've done these little V-cuts, because quite often it can get a little flare coming out the top. Wasn't too bad, but just running across that flat and trying to sand it as though it's a flat component. And then we can come up to this curve and just bring that sanding right onto that edge. Okay, good. want to mess around too long with the sanding. These bits are actually quite thin. Just under there's the brass tube. There's only about 1 millimeter's worth of material between the brass tube and the, there's only about 1 millimeter's amount of material of the actual timber there. So, you want to be a little bit careful we don't just overheat that, and you can cause splits and things. So again, let's just have a little look what's going on. We've got a little bit here I just want to address. That one's nice. So I've got me. Just going to get in on that curve there. I had a little bit that wasn't quite sanded properly. Keep the abrasive moving while we're touching on. Like I say, we don't want this to kind of overheat. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to use a bit of friction polish on these. Let's grab the friction polish here. I'll grab a bit of rag as well, and then we can turn the extractor off. We're going to need the extractor again in a bit, but for now, we're just going to do a bit of polish. So this is the friction polish. Again, this isn't going to last forever as a finish. It will dull down, but it goes a kind of nice satin color rather than the super shiny we're going to get straight from polishing. But I quite like that. If you did want to go, with something that's going to be a bit more durable, that's going to last a bit longer, check out the CA finishes. They can work really well. Just be careful with these V cuts, because sometimes they can kind of fill with that material, the super glue. So if you are going to do that, maybe do your V cuts a little bit more shallow. But yeah, just something to bear in mind, really. So I've got enough of that friction polish on there, so it's not being completely, absorbed by the rag. And I'm actually pinching that through our rag, because we want that friction to build up all the little micro beads or whatever it is in this polish. We want them to kind of skip across the surface and do their job. Now I'm using my nail in on a bit of this rag to get in down into those V's. Really, we don't want to polish in there. We just want to get some of that material in there, so it's not, so it doesn't look dry or a different kind of color. So we've got a nice little finish on that one. This laburnum should come up nice too. I'm going to use a little bit more of that friction polish. So I tend to keep your hands right over the top there. Don't have a peak halfway through, or it's all sloshes out. So cover up the mouth of the bottle and just get a bit of that on the rag. Okay, so another question.
Yeah, so Nigel's asked here, no sanding sealer.
No sanding sealer, going straight on with the friction polish. Yeah, no sanding sealer. I've gone right up to what was it, 600 grit on the abrasives. And this is very mildly abrasive, this friction polish. It's going to, any kind of nap that gets raised, it's going to lay it straight back down. All right.
Perfect. And Terry Bones asked, Ben, can you do a CA finish on pens at some point?
Yeah, we'll have a look at that. I don't much like it. It's a little bit messy, and I'm not one for glossy timbers, but certainly we'll have a look at the, you know, how it's done. I've done one before, and it, yeah, it's a mucky old thing to do, but certainly we'll have a look at that. I'll put it on the list, or Steph, if you could make a note of that.
Yeah, I'll pop it on the list now.
We can put that on the list and do that in the future for a different video. So just, again, trying to get my nail and get that product down into those V's. Just be a bit careful as you're doing that. So wiping it on, keeping it on that where the product is, that polish, and then use a different clean piece of rag just to wipe that back down. It can be a bit sticky if you leave too much of that on the surface, so we want to make sure we buff that all back off, and we've got a nice finish. Okay, I'll bring these up closer to the camera so you can have a proper look. But that's the turning done. Just something else I want to show you, just in case you might want to put some flats on something. I've made a little jig yesterday that we can use with the sanding disc on the lathe. So let's just take these off. We can have a closer look at that finish. Got my bushings nice and safe there. If you're doing lots of these pens and stuff and you've got lots of different bushings, I'd really recommend you get a magnet. But you can see the shine off of that. We're getting off that friction polish. There's no kind of fluff, you know, that's not raised the grain or anything. We've got two really nice kind of shiny bits and really nice, interesting spalting in that bit of sycamore. Okay, so we've done the turning. Let me just get rid of our mandrel here. I'm going to pop that over that side. Lots of little bits with these pens, so you need to stay, or pen, you know, like kits and things. So you need to keep things fairly organized. Okay, so I'm going to show you now. I've made a little jig that's going to sit on the table. It's a really simple thing, and that's going to help me to sand our keyring. I want to put a couple little flats on that. Really easy to do. So let's get this table. I'm going to take the tailstop off so I can bring the tool rest right back out the way. And I've got a little table here. It's just going to sit on there. Now, get my drill. So I've got a drill there with an 8mm drill bit. And in the jig, I've put a little coach bolt. And the head on it is about 10mm. Okay, so I've got a coach bolt here. That's what I'm doing with this one. So I want it kind of central, but off to the side here a little bit. Once you get the kind of concept of how this works, you can, you know, make it off the offset bigger or smaller, however you want to do it. Lift and spur drill bit. So when we drill, we're going to have a flat bottom in that hole, and that's quite important. So lift and spur. This is an 8mm drill bit. And we want to go down about the depth of the head of the screw. I've gone a little bit deep there, but this is really just to show you how we made this little jig. So you can see that hex head on the coach bolt is just a bit bigger than that. It's about 10 mil, where our hole is 8. You want a hammer. And if this is going to be a permanent thing, you can put a spot of that same glue that we used, that it's epoxy, really good stuff. But really, a couple of knocks with the hammer should just push that down in. And this is a ply. Okay, so a nice strong bit of birch ply. Should have a square here somewhere. So I've got my square on the bench over here, because it's quite important that this is square as well. So we need to just mess with that until it's perfectly square in kind of both planes, really. Want that sitting up nice and straight. Good. I've got a little bag of bits in here. So I've got a washer, which I'm just going to put over the top there. I've got my bit that we've just turned, our keyring. And I'm going to put that with the kind of wider side down, because when we sand this in a moment, we're going to sand off that overhang, and everything wants to be as close to the kind of base of the table as we can get it. I've got, I'm going to pop another washer on top. That's going to help me centralize things. Okay. And then we've got a little wing nut that can go on top of that. Okay, so that's how we're kind of making the jig. It's a really simple thing. And what we're going to do in a moment is we're going to sand up to this face. And that's going to take off whatever's overhanging on our keyring. So I'm just going to whip it off that and do it on the one that I've already made, because I feel I made that with a little bit more care and attention.
Woodwork learner is liking your jig. Nice and simple, really quick and easy.
Really quick and easy, this one. This was something Jason suggested, actually. He's really good at building jigs. And this little wing nut on the top here, if it's sticking out, we can always pack that with something else. So you might want to put another bolt on top, or another couple of washers, and that will make it sit somewhere different on the thread. Oops. Sorry, I'm rushing now. So as I turn that around, that's sitting kind of parallel with our face of our little jig. So we can get rid of our table now. We can bring in our chuck with the C jaws. So you've probably seen Colwyn using this a lot, Jason as well. We're going to put a little abrasive disc on the lathe, and that's just held on a faceplate ring. Okay, this is the C faceplate ring. We've got the C jaws on our chuck here. That just sits over there, and we're going to expand into that ring. Just fouling on the extractor so I can kick that one back. We want our little table. There's our little table, there it is. I'm going to pop that just under there a moment. Bring our table in. And just pinch that one off. Good. So now when we sand this, when this face here comes into contact with the disc, we can then back off. We can turn this through 180 degrees, And then when we sand it, we're going to have 2 parallel flats on our little project. Okay, I might come in a bit closer with that camera as well so we can get a better look. I'm just going to turn the extractor on. Creep in a little bit closer with our camera. Sorry folks, while I just adjust. Oops. There we go. Hopefully that won't go blurry. So you can see we've got that overhang there. Anything that we sand off from that point, it's going to take it right back to that board. I'm having a look, because actually there's some really pretty markings here. I'm going to just twist that so we're not sanding them all off. We'll go for something a little bit plainer on that side. And if we sand both sides, that will sit parallel with the grain then as well. So a little bit of rejiggling. Bring that lathe speed right back down. We've changed what we're holding on the lathe. And I'm going to take this. Don't want to be going too fast. Do 400 and 500 on this one. And you want a nice kind of coarse abrasive. We'll take this material off. And of course, always be careful when using a sanding disc, whether it's a disc sander or something on the lathe. We don't want to skim our knuckles on it. And you can see that little gap closing. Maybe a little bit of pressure on the back of the project. And all of that airborne dust is just getting taken away by the extractor. So trying to use, you know, don't hold it in one spot. Quite often you can clog the abrasive and it will start to burn and things. So there we are, we're really close now. And this is just a way of keeping it nice and flat. So you can see we've sanded a little flat on that side. It looks almost like a little bomb or something, doesn't it? So where we've sanded that one, I'm just twisting it through 180 degrees, and you can see I've used the square just to put some pencil marks really on our block at different intervals, and then we can line up that edge just by eyeballing it to our pencil mark, so we get that nice flat on opposing sides. Again, just take that back and forward. Perhaps a little go with the abrasive cleaning stick if you've got one, if you feel it's starting to clog. And if you wanted to label this, if you wanted to put someone's initials on it, or house number, or like the shed, like I've done on the other one, do it after this. Where we've got the naked timber really. We don't want to put a finish on that and then burn it. I can just hear that that bit of ply is making contact now. So this can be a really good way of just keeping things square, keeping things flat, but a really simple jig to make. And then we've got 2 kind of parallel flats there. And that'd be really nice. You could do little bottles with things like that, things for dolls' houses. It could be a nice way of putting a flat on a round, keeping things nice and safe. So you're not holding this and it kind of wanting to pull over and things like that. So a little quick made jig with a little coach bolt can be a really useful little thing. Like I say, if you wanted to do any pyro on that, or carve in any initials or anything, now's the time. Otherwise, I just get a bit more of that friction polish on a bit of rag. Obviously, we're not really going to produce enough friction for it to actually polish, but it just take the color back to looking like the rest of the project. So we can just give that a little wipe over with the friction polish. Got some dust that's settled in those little V's, so I'm just going to wipe them back out and give that a good kind of buff by hand. Make sure you don't leave any of that kind of sticky residue on there. Okay, so quickly now, let's do a little bit of assembly. So just going to slide that down to one end. Let's bring our little table back in. Dump my washers and things. I think I'm going to take the chuck off. With that extra diameter of the sanding disc, I found I can do that by hand. And that just gives us a bit more space with our assembly there. I'm just going to come back on this camera now. So just adjusting this ever so slightly. Apologies for being off screen a moment. Okay, back in business. So our assembly. So really easy on these ones. That's the one for the light pull. Here's our keyring. So remember, we've got that brass tube in the middle there, glued in. And these little components I'm just going to push in either end of that brass tube. Always keep these in their little bags right up until the moment you need to use them. They're really easy to lose in the shavings. Okay, so we've got almost like a cap end that you would get on a pen. So that's going to go into the bottom. Okay, this is a chrome kit, but there are kind of gold plated ones as well. Just going to knock back one of those little, two of those little cuffs, and in the end here there's a little hole, and that's really nice to be able to locate things into. Just push that in up to its shoulder, locate that in there. Oops, sorry, it's a little bit fiddly, keeps popping out. There we go, got it. And this is sprung as well, so it will kind of come back and help put a bit of tension on there. So when you kind of let go, the project comes back with it and it's not all going to fall over. The other end now, we've got our the bit where the hoop goes in, that holds your keys, and I like to align that. You can twist it afterwards, but I quite like to align that so that the ring is an opposite kind of plane to the key ring. So same sort of thing. Just dropped off another one of those little cuffs. I don't think I've got enough travel there, so let's bring that back. Drop that one in. What a nice little press, this one. and just kind of push that in. Now where I was fiddling with it, it's come just slightly off of its, you know, what the plane that I wanted it in. So we can use the ring itself to go through here. So this is just one of those split rings. I need to just open that up a touch and get that running through there. Okay, and you can actually twist that back into position. And there we go, little keyring. I've left that one quite plain, but you know, you don't have to. You can do whatever shape you want to do. These are our little light pulls. Again, that's the same sort of deal. Just push in the end cap on this one. There is a little bit of string that can just thread through this one. But with the key rings, these make really nice little gifts. Really simple, again, really nice and safe to turn, being mounted right the way through with that mandrel. So a great way to practice spindle turning or turning between centers. You know, if you want practice with the skew for planing cuts and things like that, it can be a really nice way. Pens and project kits are a really nice way to kind of up your confidence, and at the end of it you get really nice little kind of practical gifts and you know, all sorts of things that you can give away, and personalize them as well, put in people's initials and things like that, or the name of the house, or you know, all those sorts of things. But that's it really. Any more questions, Steph?
No questions. We did have from Attila the Hamster that you could hit that flat edge for the keyring with friction polish on with a Dremel and a Weevil pad, maybe. Yeah,
you could use Dremel. We really like the mops and stuff in here. So if you wanted to polish that face, you know, something like the mops and the polish. A little Dremel, they have little mop heads and stuff on there. So yeah, you could color them, you can burn on them, but quite a nice little thing to be able to produce a little flat like that. And you could do it on three sides, so you're almost it's going from a tapered cylinder into like a triangle or something like that. Just work it out on your little jig, and you can get equilateral triangles. You could do it square, so it goes from a round into a cube. So yeah, just something I wanted to show you folks, something a little bit different to you know, just the round key rings, and it takes a little bit of the bulk off. I like to, you know, while I like a chunky key ring, it just takes some of the bulk off. You've got it in your pocket or something. Yeah, it just reduces the size of it. But great idea. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. And someone's just asked if we could put the link for the keyring kit, so I will add it to the comments of the video after.
Yeah,
so
that should be in the description of the video, just down below here. So once the video is finished, have a look in the links, and that one should be on there. It's a nice little kit, that one. Again, I've put the chrome on because that's what I've used today, but that link will take you through to the website, and there's gold and chrome, and I think some others to have a look at. All right.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Thanks for joining us for another Woodworking Wisdom. We'll see you very soon. Cheers.